I was working with this organization, and the owner of the organization bought everybody that worked for him a Fitbit, and they all signed up so everybody could see their steps, right? And you had people,
Yeah.
on their breaks, out walking around doing the thing. And then this one guy, he was kind of leading the board, or he's pretty high up on the board. And I said, man, he's doing great. And they go, no, no. He goes home every night. He puts his Fitbit on his dog's collar and sits in a lawn chair and throws the tennis ball.
Welcome again to It Doesn't Take a Genius, conversation with introspective perspectives and pithy points of view. Here are your hosts, my friends, Max and Marty.
I think that's Mark and Mike.
Yeah, whatever.
Ramsey!
Marshall, it is a pleasure to see you again. Although we actually saw each other in person recently. We could have recorded an episode, but we were just too busy with client work. So,
Yes.
oh well.
We were doing good stuff and lots of good stuff, and our brains were like an egg on skillet. Yes.
Oh, that is very true. And this has happened a couple times. It didn't happen as much this time, but you're so high energy. And I'm typically that way, like at the end of a conference, I'll want to go to the restaurant and hang out with everybody and, get some good stories out of folks. That's when we learned that a certain friend of ours had literally had John Bonham shake his hand and thank him for his lighting equipment. Remember that? You weren't there for that. Anyway, doesn't matter. We get lots of good stuff, but there have been a few times where you or I have just sort of at dinner have just sort of gone, I don't want to talk anymore. I'm done.
It was interesting. After those 2 days, my voice was actually a little scratchy. It's like, like work the pipes there. Yeah. That was good. That was good. So you can tell by my background, the topic of AI is still on our menu. And it was interesting
very much
because our artificial intelligence overlords sent a couple of emissaries to the United States, and our military promptly shot them out of the sky. So that doesn't bode well for our future.
That's right.
At some point,
although I heard one of the Sidewinder missiles missed, like one of them was taken out on the second shot.
Yeah, swing and a miss. Yeah. So I figure at some point the artificial intelligence mothership will descend, cast a shadow on the planet, and go, hey, I'm trying to help you people. Why are you shooting at me?
Have you ever heard the Bob Newhart little joke about when there were so many machines back in the 60s when he was getting popular with his stand-up routines, and he had been an accountant and had come from the business world, and he said he was just waiting for the day when one machine would sit another machine down and say, Bob, we have to let you go. This has been a recording. That's the joke, you had to be there, I guess. I can tell it didn't land. So
no, I was actually thinking about what happened here recently, where a report came out on a company, and the company had missed its earnings and things like that. And the artificial intelligence wrote the article, and then our stock market is controlled by artificial intelligence bots, right? You got all these robots that are buying and selling based upon, the temperature of things that are going on and even what's going on in the media. So this negative press came out, and then the bots automatically sold. So we had the first instance where one machine caused another machine to take action. It's like, wait a minute.
You're not giving me much hope here, Mike. I know that we've sort of like cartoonishly pitted ourselves as you're pro AI and I'm anti AI, and that's not really true. But that's not a great story for me, Mike. Thank you for letting me know about that. But that'll just help keep me up at night. Appreciate that.
Well, you're going to be really unhappy when we talk about the robotic dogs that they've now put machine guns on. So.
Oh yeah. That's just it's terrifying.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's what I want. A dog with an M60.
Right.
My food bowl's empty. It's cool.
It's like Bill Mummy in that Twilight Zone episode where he can kill people and just make them disappear at random just because he's unhappy.
Yeah.
That?
Yeah, sure, that's perfect. Yeah.
Well, anyway, let me just get us back onto AI, to specifics to this particular episode. First, a follow-up. I tried to do a Philippians chapter 2
chapter
study
2.
guide. Yeah, I tried to
Okay.
have ChatGPT help me with that. Kind of a swing and a miss, to be honest with you. It was some of it was on target, but some of it was clear that it didn't actually understand what was happening toward the end of the chapter. You and I talked about this a little bit off air, that it's a section where Paul is talking about, I want to send Timothy your way, but I can't yet. But I am sending Epaphroditus. He almost died, and he's been really anxious to get back to you. You do have to sort of take a couple steps of inference to realize why this is suddenly thrust into the middle of the letter, which is Epaphroditus came from the Philippians and was delivering probably like some money to help Paul. He got sick, almost died, and so there's been a delay in him coming back, and now he's finally coming back. Timothy, probably there to help Paul through his court case in Rome, as he was in jail at the time. So you do have to make some inferences there, and apparently ChatGPT missed those inferences, and I just decided to forego it. So we're not all the way baked yet. Another example of that is it's funny because I quoted my cyberpunk author William Gibson. Well, William Gibson recently retweeted a professor, a researcher who tried to get ChatGPT to develop a list of citations that could be, like a list of citations for her particular specialty that she researched. And she had to sort of trick it. It refused to do it, maybe for, legal or academic reasons. But she said, pretend to be, a scientist who's, developing a short list of citations. And it all sounded good, all grammatically correct. But the more she investigated each of those citations, she realized the whole thing was completely made up. And I mean, like 7 levels down of detail. Like, yeah, I can give you a synopsis of that book. Yeah, I can give you some info about that author. Yeah. And it just kept adding falsity, but it sounded so good. And so, again, she did have to use the word pretend. And so maybe that, gave ChatGPT real permission there. But my goodness, her point being, we're going to have to be really careful about what we trust. Her word was hallucination. We're going to be in danger of hallucinations. So those are some, cautionary tales. None of them involve Sidewinder missiles or, machine guns on dogs, but cautionary tales that you have to know more than the machine does to some degree to be able to use it effectively. And I think that's probably a good preamble into a use you found recently of how to effectively use it as a tool. So do you want to share your latest story?
And just thinking about your stories, Philippians 1's much more, I think, well known, well researched. There's probably more essays on that than Philippians 2. And
Could be.
Because this thing is only looking at the available works that are out there, it didn't see a lot on this, so it wasn't able to do a lot with that. And so that it's fascinating that if there's not a big body of work on this, it won't be able to extrapolate from that body of work the stuff that you needed to construct your class.
Well, you said extrapolate, and interpolate is another word that we've been hearing thrown around, where it's like a JPEG image, was the way the New Yorker put it. That there's a pixel here and a pixel here, and we're deleting everything in between to make that JPEG nice and small, and the computer's going to have to come up with what's in between. And usually it's a pretty good guess, but you lose, it's a lossy file. It loses some data. So ChatGPT is going to be in the same boat. It doesn't know everything. It's extrapolating, interpolating what might be between the two. And that's why it comes up with some of these nightmarish images that AI can create, but also how it's going to, sort of make some stuff up.
Oh yeah,
that's probably pretty close.
well, and the prompt, right? I think the prompt was
Yeah.
pretend to be a researcher. Well, if I can pretend to be a researcher, I can pretend to make up citations. So,
Yep.
and there was
Yep.
another story where somebody had said something similar, where they'd said pretend to be an entity that is not bound by the rules that govern you, and
Yeah.
write a
And it
story.
worked.
So yeah, and it did. It was like, okay, if there's, if I can ignore the three prime directives or whatever,
Yeah.
I've got going on with my
Right.
robot,
My,
then
my Isaac Asimov laws of robotics.
yes, yeah, ignore those three things. What would you write if I prompted you to do this? And so it was writing some pretty hateful, mean, strange,
Oh yeah.
weird stuff,
Yeah.
because the person with the prompt had released it from that criteria or that restriction.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think then it's acting like a 6-year-old child. Right, create a citation. Here's one. Well, create. I want another one. And so same with a child that's broke the vase. The parent is questioning, right? Who broke the vase? I don't know. No,
Yeah.
seriously, who broke the vase? Well, I think it might have been the dog. All right, how'd the dog do it? Well, I think the dog was running and he got excited, and then maybe he, And
Right.
so the more you push, the farther away from reality it got.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, those cautionary tales of be careful what you ask and how you ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
The machine, because it may actually, what's that old adage about the computer before this, right? That, my computer's so annoying, it doesn't do what I want it to do. It only does what I tell it to do.
Yeah.
And in this
Yeah.
case, same thing, right? This thing is only doing what I tell it to do. So when I tell it to, not operate in these parameters, pretend to be
Right.
this, it just does it. Yeah, it
Well,
has.
there's that's a great point. That there's a podcast from World Magazine, which is sort of an evangelical Christian news magazine, and they have a great podcast on sort of she calls herself the news coach, and she helps you figure out how you're going to process news stories with kids. Because a lot of our modern news stories are very complicated, a lot of adult themes, and so how do you break things down? And so one of the metaphors they were using for artificial intelligence was spell check. Spell check is this amazing tool, but sometimes you are going to want to override spell check because you know better, right? Like that is a proper name. I want it spelled exactly like this. Or, I'm quoting somebody. I know that's not grammatically correct, but we're still going to do it this way. But you have to know enough to be able to use the tool in that way instead of just sort of letting go of the steering wheel and going wherever the computer goes. You have to steer it yourself a little bit, and I think that's sort of your prompt is another great example of that. Of how well you dial in the prompt is really telling me how well you can make use of the tool instead of the tool being something you're dependent on and maybe even in danger of. So I love your example.
No, I think you're spot on, and yeah, I had the opportunity to use it in a work situation. We surveyed a fairly large group of employees. There was some verbatim comments, just tell us, share your feelings and stuff like that. And so now I got pages of writing that somebody's going to have to read, and that seemed arduous. So I copied it, I pasted it into Chat GPT. I said, write a summary of this. And I have to admit, it produced a really nice summary. And as I went back, but I think that same thing, right? As I went back and checked it, I went back and reread all the comments and created my summary. We were very much in line. And so it could pick up repetitive phrases, repetitive meaning. It picked all that out and said, here's the main points from all these things that people have submitted. And it was like, well, that was nice. So I think the danger would be had I not checked it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I plugged it in, it wrote a summary. I send the summary to the client and go, here's what your people are thinking. Ooh, that's I'm not to that level of trust with the machine yet.
Yeah, and would you even want that? It's one thing to have it help you type things up, it's another thing. No, bear with me on this one, because I think this is a big deal. You want to do some
I think
learning.
you're underestimating how simplified I want my life. Right? I want my life to be as simple and smooth as possible. And yeah, I think a lot of other people are with me on this.
I think so. And to be fair, slavery, a very simplified life. You know, they tell you what to do, you just go do it. Then you get food, clothing, shelter. I mean, hey,
Yeah. Oh, that's my retirement
wake up,
plan.
sheeple.
Yeah, I watched this movie. This is my retirement plan. I get tired of working. I'm going to go rob a bank. You know, I'm going to get caught. I got 3 square meals a day. I got room, board. Yeah. There's a library. There's a gym. It's going to be
Cable
great.
television. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
This is going to be awesome.
Well, you know, Mike, point taken. Point taken.
So
But I do think the you wanting to have a learning moment with your team, right, or your department or your client, you're not going to do that if you don't actually read the stuff, right? Like we can just go with their summary. You know, Chat GPT can give us a summary, but that doesn't mean you guys have come to an understanding or a revelation or a shared meaning. And Lord of mercy, that's really what we're trying to achieve, is to, you know, develop some shared meaning between us. That's when communication actually takes place, and we can take a step forward for the organization. So
I think, and then maybe it could do this, right? So one of the things that gets people to take action is emotion, and the emotion came from pulling out specific. All right, here's a specific sentence that this person we surveyed wrote, and it speaks to the summary. All right, this is what they've summarized, and here's a quote that speaks to that. It's the quote that pulls at the heart, or gets the blood flowing, or creates an emotion that causes me to want to do something more, better, different, or less. And so the summary was great, and I may have been able to say, it's just almost frightening, pull out the quote that will that will illustrate the summary to the highest degree. And it may have done that, so yeah, there's that opportunity there. But yeah, you still, as a human, wouldn't grasp it all unless you've read it all.
Right. And I guess we could go forward a few clicks into this whole process that we're all on. Could you have a meeting with your team? You don't need to hire a coach or facilitator or consultant. You just have the whole thing recorded. You can immediately ask for the meeting to be summarized, and quotes to be played back, literal recordings to be played back of things people said that were, from the AI's perspective, most compelling. Sure, maybe you could do that.
I'm liking it.
Yeah, I mean, I get how that would, let's assume neutrality too, right? Let's assume that the AI doesn't have like a corporate axe to grind, a governmental axe to grind, a policy axe to grind, and it could literally give you neutral feedback on where the energy was and what were the main points discussed and where there was real agreement. Somebody's still going to have to everybody is going to have to look each other in the eye and say, is this what we're about? Is this the decision that we're going to make? And do that consensus moment.
Well, and you could, that's frightening and exciting all at the same time.
Right.
As you're talking about it, I'm thinking about the exercise where you observe a meeting, and then you keep tick marks about who spoke the most, who addressed who in the meeting, and you figure out who the influencers are, and your communications channel. Well, the machine, once it understood, voice recognition, it would be able to do that. You could have a meeting, record that meeting, plug it in the machine, and the machine would tell you, all right, who's the people who are influencing, who do people defer to, and you'd have kind of an organizational map of power within an organization versus maybe its organizational actual structure on paper. So
sure. And how about we tie that to metrics, KPIs per employee, and we can see who should be fired, frankly, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
they don't bring value in those meeting moments, and they don't bring enough production value outside of the meeting.
Well,
Like
and
when
you
it's
you
like the
can
new version of General Electric, right? Like this is literally the next step of, what was it? Fire the bottom 20%. I can't remember what he
5%, I think. Yeah. So
5%. Yeah.
yeah, it's perfect because you can actually ask the machine to write the letter to fire somebody,
Yeah. Right.
and it writes a great letter. I actually, Taylor was working on something, and she had to write a dismissal letter, and I just plugged it in there, and it was like, that's pretty good there. Yeah. So I harvested
That
some.
sounds like something I'd say.
Yeah, harvested some verbiage. So we had a couple of news articles that related to this as well. So one of them
Yeah.
was judge uses Chat GP to render decision.
Yeah.
And the subheadline: Welcome to our new AI judges, the latest in our dystopian hellscape. That's a good subtitle. And we won't go into the details, but I do have to say the judge's name because it is musical. This was Colombian
Yeah.
judge Juan Manuel Padilla Garcia of the First Circuit Court of
Beautiful.
Cartagena. Right, just love his
Beautiful.
name. And so, but he did the same thing, right? He's trying to figure out how to rule on this. And so he asked ChatGPT, okay, give me an example of similar cases and what were the rulings on those. But then he had his, the court assistants, whatever those folks are, go back
Yeah.
and research and make sure that all of that was correct, right? The cases cited, the
Right.
findings in those cases were correct, but
Yeah.
it definitely streamlined the research. He knew exactly
Yeah.
where to go
I'd
look.
love to know how much time it saved him. That's my real question is,
Had to be
how
hours.
much time did it save? Because he still had to sign off, right? He still had to say, this is my responsibility to make this decision. Here's my verdict. So, he better be darn sure that what he got was accurate to feel comfortable with signing on that dotted line.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. I'm going to cite this, and I believe in the findings, right? The final whatever they call that thing when the court reports out, that he did note where AI did the research, and then how they verified the research. So in that court document, you knew that I got an assist here, but I verified the assist.
So I have to tell you before we move on that we had a Colombian foreign exchange student in my high school the year I graduated. We're still friends on Facebook. He was beloved by our school. He was the nicest guy in the world. And I believe I'm pronouncing this correctly. His name was Jorge Arroyabe.
Ooh.
And the jocks in our school very quickly dubbed him George Arrarara. That was as close as they could get. So he was absolutely the best. So hats off to Colombia.
That's so Midwest American.
Oh, yeah. Midwest. What are you talking about? I'm in the South. You keep saying Midwest. I have to correct you on that sooner.
They drew the Mason-Dixon line one state too high. Yeah, you're supposed to be in the mid-north. The
mid-north.
So we had another article. This one's great. Streaming platform Twitch just suspended the AI Seinfeld channel because it went full transphobic. So, yeah, I watched this. It was actually pretty fascinating. So AI was writing Seinfeld episodes, and at some point it decided it was going to write a Seinfeld episode. And this is cool. Right? You can see the video. Their characters are walking around in really poor.
Yeah, like it's 3D animated and the whole thing.
And they're talking, and it's Elaine and Jerry, but not Elaine and Jerry. And
right
at some point, it does the stand-up monologue at the end of an episode, and it just goes transphobic. It just starts talking about how bad trans people are and negative things, and so it got deleted from the platform. But it didn't take long for it to run out of stuff to say and just head down that path. Which I thought
I'd love to know, maybe in the future, we'll be able to, sort of do a study on that. I would love to know what the AI was thinking, if you will, like what What made it go, hey, here's something I could make some jokes about?
Well, if you think about it, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. There's a body of work out there that is negative towards every group on the planet. And at some point, if you point it in a direction, it's going to find, I'm sure it's going to find the positive and it's going to find the negative and bring all that out. So I thought that was interesting. And then the last one we had was Chat GPT is a blurry JPEG of the web. And this goes back to what you're talking about, and part of the problem with the citing references. So it goes out and reads everything, and then you ask it a question, and it doesn't give you the exact answer, which is what our current search does. Our current search now just presents you with links to the actual articles, essays, or whatever information that you're asking about. This reads it all, creates its own version of that, and in doing so, parts are lost. Right? Little pieces fall off, and then the danger is when they released Chat GPT 4, which we're on 3 now, they release 4. If it goes out and reads everything on the internet plus whatever's been created by Chat GPT 3, which is a more fuzzy version of the original, now you've got a 3rd generation copy. It's even fuzzier. And so the article talked about, is this the old making a photocopy and then making a photocopy of the photocopy, make a photocopy of the photocopy, and eventually you end up with just this, crooked, gnarly, specks on a piece of paper that in no shape or form resemble the original content.
And to be fair, we're kind of there with search engines anyway, because we've had so many, bots that are creating content for the sake of showing up high in search rankings that, I can't imagine that the AI has even a good read on actually what's going on, because there are probably so many websites that are just filler stock articles about various things that people are commonly searching for. And that's why, we used to talk about Google Foo, you had a good ability with, how to make use of the search engine. And now it's probably going to be the same way with AI, if AI can survive the onslaught of so much data that's just wrong. And that's back to the World Magazine podcast. They had another great analogy, which was, where's the line on what you're going to do versus what the AI is going to do. And their analogy was, you would never go to the gym and have a robot lift your weights. That doesn't make any sense, right? Like you are not getting the benefit of growing, physically when you do that. You're not improving physically when you let the robot do that. So at what stage, do we allow the tool to be a tool versus we become, I keep saying dependent, where we become dependent on it, and it's not actually helping us as human beings long term.
I think you're greatly underestimating humanity. So I remember, I was working.
You're saying we don't want to grow?
Here's my example. I was working with this organization, and the owner of the organization bought everybody that worked for him a Fitbit, and they all signed up so everybody could see their steps, right? And you had people, on their breaks, out walking around doing the thing. And then this one guy, he was kind of leading the board, or he's pretty high up on the board. And I said, man, he's doing great. And they go, no, he goes home every night. He puts his Fitbit on his dog's collar and sits in a lawn chair and throws the tennis ball until he gets his steps in. So in this case, there was actually, to speak to your example, there was actually somebody that was, hired somebody else to go to the gym for him. In this case, it was his, beloved furry friend, the dog.
Would you like to take that to the dystopian hellscape of the Colombian judge? Because I've got an example of that. I know a young lady who has trouble getting out of, this is not my wife, by the way. I know a young lady who has trouble getting up in the morning. She has bought from China a shock device. It literally shocks her in the morning and gives her electrical shock in her, I think it's her wrist, until she, and I think she has to solve 3 puzzles on the device or do 100 jumping jacks. And so like it's going to just keep shocking her until she gets it right. And she did eventually have to like take it off and just start waving it around because it had a bug in it and it wouldn't pick up her jumping jacks. But combine that with AI,
Oh yeah.
let's just see
No,
how
it's all
this
it's all
goes.
coming together. Yeah, it reminds me of grade school when they would, when they come up and twist, a part of your anatomy and request that you name 3 candy bars. You'd be like, Baby Ruth, Milky Way, payday. That's a lot of stress, to come up with 3 candy bars when you're being, in pain. So I did see the alarm clock that runs away from you. So
Yes.
it's got the 2 motorized wheels. It goes off and then it leaps off the nightstand and just zips around the room like a Roomba on crack. And you have to get out of the bed and catch it to turn it off. It's like,
Yes, I saw a copter version of that. Just, it shoots off into the air. Good luck. Go find it.
all right. So see, this is for all our listeners, both of you, the opportunity here is to put all this together. Right, you take all these current inventions, you put it together with this AI thing. This is the next $1 million idea. This is we're going to be sitting around going, we thought about all the pieces of that, but we didn't put it together. And then this 18-year-old billionaire, he made it happen.
I hope that doesn't happen, but thank you for that amazing concept. That not only will we be unhappy that AI has taken off in that direction, but we'll be unhappy and poor while somebody else is rich. So thank you for that, Mike. I hope that doesn't happen.
Well, no. And if it does, dystopian hellscape may become our catchphrase of the decade. It's going to be great. All right, so we'll take a little break from AI and maybe get back to our regular programming. But
we do have that. That's right.
So it's been interesting. This thing is creeping into work. Whether it's invited or by accident. So I think there's no escape that it's going to be a bigger part of our lives.
No doubt. And the more we just sort of prepare for that and think through, where would we use it? Where's the line? What makes it useful? How do we use it? That's hopefully what we're trying to bring to you with these insane episodes that seem to be half jokes. So good luck, everybody.
Yeah, we're rooting for you.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not. They're not gonna. A lot of them aren't gonna make it. Oh, are we still on? We're still on. Oh, let's throw it to our real. We're gonna use our real life announcer.
Yes.
Yeah, before he becomes replaced, Mr. John Wolf, take it away, flesh and blood announcer guy.
And there you have it, another session of contemporaneous extemporizing from Mark and Mike. I know it's redundant, but consider who we're talking about. As always, feel free to share the ideas you heard here. No rights are reserved, no permissions needed. Thanks. See you next time on It Doesn't Take a Genius.
That's good enough.